This is the 9 p.m. edition of the Urban Debate. Let's talk about Jammu and Kashmir and how terrorists have now again targeted a politician shot dead. The Jammu and Kashmir Apni Party leader Ghulam Hassan Lone in Kulgam. This comes just 2 days after terrorists shot dead a BJP leader in the same district. Now, we're talking about it tonight because these aren't just separate, isolated instances, one here, two there. There is a pattern and there is a trend here, and which is the big concern. The attack on Lone was actually the 4th terror attack on a political leader just this month. 4 attacks. There was one in Anantnag, where a BJP sarpanch, Ghulam Rasul Dar, and his wife were killed by 2 LET terrorists who entered the house and shot them both dead. Then there was another one in Rajouri. That was a grenade attack at a BJP leader's house. The grenade was hurled at his house and he was targeted. Then came the one just 2 days ago in Kulgam. Another BJP leader, Javed Dar, shot dead, killed right outside his residence. And now, Apni Party leader Ghulam Hassan Lone, shot dead. This is a big concern. And this is similar to the trend we see every time there is an attempt to restart the democratic process, to plan elections, local body polls, state elections, to bring about a sense of a democratic state, some amount of normalcy, and this takes place. Series of terror attacks actually took place the last time local body polls were being held. The first polls essentially after Article 370 was abolished. How is this being seen as a message? Can this be stopped? Let's talk about what's going on in Jammu and Kashmir. Najnu Saqib, spokesperson for the PDP, Tuhin Sinha of the BJP, Vikram Malhotra, General Secretary of JKAP, and Manoj Joshi, senior journalist, also joining me right now. Tuhin, series of attacks, and many of those in the recent times have been actually leaders, sarpanch leaders, local leaders from your party. Now, what's the message there?
Well, yes, Tanvi, the death of any BJP worker, his family members, or anybody pro-BJP is extremely painful because unlike cowards like Abdullahs and Muftis, these are extremely brave, ground soldiers who have worked very hard to transform the situation on the ground in the last 2 years. So for the Islamist demons to particularly target them shows a very retributive mindset. Now over here, I would like to tell you 200 leaders and functionaries of the BJP have been provided high level of security. But as of now, there are 530,000 BJP workers, which is unimaginable, which shows the kind of transformation which has happened in the ground, because 3 years ago or 5 years ago, it would have been unimaginable to think that BJP has so many ground workers. So while, yes, we are trying to fortify security, it's like providing security to, 10 people in a span of 100 meters. And then to follow their movements, which becomes a very arduous task. Now, you need to just give me a moment. If you just give me a minute, I will explain what has happened. The influence of Pakistan has been completely weeded out in the last 2 years, because post the application of Article 370 and 35A, the attempts which have been made to make this a more inclusive Kashmir, 41.05 lakh domicile certificates, which paves the way for a larger chunk of Hindu Kashmiris to have a stake in the valley. 890 central laws being made applicable in Jammu and Kashmir, and similarly 205 state laws being repealed. All of them have created a situation where Pakistan feels irrevocably cornered and their influence completely finished. And that is why from public terror attacks which used to take place 3 years ago, now they have had a very retributive mindset where they are picking up certain people based upon their faith, based upon their ideology, and targeting them. Now, when they target a 2-year-old child, when they target women, I think that is against humanity. And we will, by killing some 650 terrorists in the valley in the last 2 years, we have given them an apt reply. I can tell you that this is the last stage of of Pakistan-sponsored mayhem or Pakistan-sponsored militancy, because the path ahead is very clear, as has been highlighted by Honorable Prime Minister. Delimitation followed by elections and followed by a new assembly where I think it will be a very transformed assembly, which will be completely aligned to India, which you already saw in the way 15th August, almost all parts of Kashmir had huge, including Burhan Wani's father, hosted the national tricolor. So this is a very transformed Kashmir, and I can tell you, though, whatever incidents, though it is absolutely sad, this thing is at its last stage in the valley.
Okay, I want Najmu Sabkeep's view also on this before I go across to our other panelists. And right now I'm just asking each of our panelists to tell me how they see these recent round of attacks and if they are any different from what we've seen in the past.
Well, first of all, we undeservedly these killings that have started again, this recent bout of political killings in Jammu and Kashmir, it's really unfortunate. Having said that, what BJP likes to claim, like post-abrogation of Article 370, that we have brought normalcy in Jammu and Kashmir, that everything is fine in Jammu and Kashmir. But the reality is completely different. What my good friend Tohin Sinha from BJP was just saying, it's completely detached from reality. These guys are living on their own la la land. I mean, they have absolutely no idea of what's happening on the ground. I'll give you a very small example of what's happening on the ground. Political leaders are being evicted from their homes, from their secure accommodations, right? And if these political leaders ask government for security in their respective homes, they're not being provided security, right? That's what is happening on the ground. And my dear friend Tohin, I want to remind him, why is it that, when these incidents happen, whether that be in Pulwama, where a BJP sarpanch was clearly linked with Devinder Singh. Now there's another killing in Pulwama, and another BJP guy was arrested by police with the pistol in his hand. Now BJP is, feigning ignorance, saying that, we want police to go for verification of antecedents of our workers in South Kashmir, 1,500 of our workers in South Kashmir. But the reality is that they have sort of, created a Frankenstein monster. What they are doing in Kashmir is they're exploiting the families of youngsters who are in jails. The stone pelters who are in jails, they're exploiting their families, promising them that we will release you from jails, come join BJP, and suddenly you will be okay for this country. Someone who is anti-national, and then he joins BJP, becomes a national, and that is why their workers are being arrested with grenades. Their workers are being arrested with pistols. Their workers are being arrested. Being involved in a lot of these, activities. That is the reality of BJP. Okay. And they have the gall to claim that other political parties are terrorists. That's what they're doing. And my friend Tohin Sinha was talking about that, muftis and Abdullahs. My dear friend Tohin, I don't know if you're aware about history of Kashmir. Are 11,000 of our political workers, for National Conference and PDP and rest of the political parties combined, have been killed. Mind you, okay. As I said before, it is Kashmir is a new topic for them. For obviously, they have no idea of what they're speaking about. What are the actors and what a larger security and strategic ramifications destabilizing Jammu and Kashmir has.
Okay, Najmu, you raised a point. You said that 11,000 of political workers and leaders in the last many years have been killed as well. I want to take up that point and go across to Manoj Joshi, who has tracked this state so closely, understands it inside out. Mr. Joshi, is this new set of attacks and targeting of politicians, specifically of certain parties, something different? Is there a different message this time?
Well, different in the sense that we have traversed a certain period of time. In the sense, as Mr. Saqib said earlier, there was this issue, the National Conference was targeted, the Congress Party was targeted. So they lost a lot of their, many politicians who I'd say belong to pro-India parties, and I include the National Conference, the Congress Party, and the PDP in this, many of them were targeted and killed. Now, what has happened is that the BJP has made a big entry into the political scene in Kashmir. And so, in a sense, you see, because the whole point of terrorist attacks is that they pick soft targets, the easiest targets. And in this case, the easiest targets for them are BJP members, because the BJP has taken a certain BJP-led government has undertaken a certain political position with regard to Kashmir, with the abrogation of Article 370, the demotion of Jammu and Kashmir as a state. So, from the terrorist point of view, it's a very useful thing to attack the BJP, because the point is that you're able, then you separate them from the National Conference and the Congress, who are not in the picture right now. Many of them are in fact in jail. So what you do is that you select the BJP, they're soft targets, they are obvious targets, and it's very difficult to protect individuals like this, next to impossible. I think earlier the spokesman had made some remarks about the numbers of people involved. But all I can say is that this is the way terrorism works, meaning they pick on soft targets, they pick on targets which make a big splash in the news. And that's what has happened right now. So political workers have been killed for a long time.
Yeah, okay? Absolutely.
And now the BJP makes the best target as far as they are concerned.
So the target's changed, but the intent is the same. The kind of the narrative building is going to be the same. In fact, one of the militant groups put out a message on social media, obviously because that's the larger intent, to put to send this message to locals, to people over there, to say this is an example, to warn people to not betray Kashmir martyrs and so on and so forth. So Mr. Vikram Malhotra, does this work on ground instill a sense of fear in people, especially when we are just about beginning to talk about, holding elections, bringing back the democratic process in the state?
You see, losing one of our members to the terrorist bullets has been a very unfortunate incident, and the whole party, and I see all parties across the political spectrum have condemned this act. And as you rightly said, and Mr. Joshi also, that the trend of political assassinations in Jammu and Kashmir is not new. This has been there for a long time. And at a certain point in time, when Congress was in the center, was ruling, and there was UPA 1, UPA 2, the members of Congress, National Conference, PDP have been targeted. And now, since the BJP, NDA is in power, so that makes for easy targets for the BJP. And this recent target on Jammu Kashmir Apni Party, our party, has been because this is the only party which came out and which held the Indian flag, which came out and said that we want to, talk. We want to talk post abrogation of 370. We want the political process to start. We want our statehood back. We want the elections to be held. We want this bureaucracy, this to go. We want the elected people to come about and hold the reins of power. So the very fact that the Prime Minister on the 15th of August from the ramparts of the Red Fort, he said that, we are committed to holding elections in Jammu and Kashmir. So what we saw post that was a number of attacks on the security forces in Jammu province. The Jammu province has become suddenly a hotbed of militant activity, terrorist activity across the state. And we saw a JCO being martyred in Rajouri. We saw an encounter in Avantipura today in the morning. And yesterday, our colleague was killed. So this assassination definitely, sends shivers down the spine of the political workers. But the commitment to the cause to bring about a change in Jammu and Kashmir, to bring about a new change in Jammu and Kashmir post the abrogation of 370, I think these forces which are inside Jammu and Kashmir and across the border, they do not want They don't want things to normalize. They don't want peace to prevail in Jammu and Kashmir. They don't want an elected government post 370. So these incidents will continue. The onus is on the government of the day to protect the leadership and use the security agencies to identify the vulnerable people. It's not possible to give security to each and every worker of each and every political party. But still, you see, the onus is on government to identify soft targets and try and hold elections as soon as possible in Jammu and Kashmir post the exercise of delimitation is completed. So that should be the focus of the government and restore the statehood, restore complete statehood of Jammu and Kashmir, so that there is some faith which is there's installation of faith amongst the people of Jammu and Kashmir. That is what we've been striving for. And this recent incident of attack on one of our members and him having attained martyrdom is a clear indicator, as because we have been the pioneers who came out post the abrogation of 370.
Okay, but so here is the point then. Mr. Manoj Joshi, I come back to you before I go to the other two. If these attacks are continuing at the same ease, let me just use that word, because that's how easily they're able to target individuals and shoot them down. When the last round of local body polls happened, we saw a series of similar terror attacks take place as well. Then the argument from one side is, what has changed? BJP keeps claiming things have changed. This is Naya Kashmir. We've managed to get a handle on terrorism, on terrorist activities. But has anything on ground really changed in 2 years, or is it too soon to ask for that change? It's just been 2 years.
Well, I'm afraid the BJP is wrong on this. The BJP actually created part of this problem. In the sense, things were settling down, and the BJP then decided, when the BJP came to power, they decided that they're going to get the final solution on this. And so they enacted an operation all out. They did various things. See, what is happening in Kashmir cannot be resolved by military means. Meaning you either then have to kill all the Kashmiris, or you have to throw them out of the state, or do all kinds of things. That's not possible. So what you have to do at some point is to take on the terrorists, defeat the terrorists, defeat terrorism. And when I say terrorism, I'm very clear. Terrorism to me is an attack on non-combatants. I don't include the military and the police in this. Anyone who is non-combatant, unarmed, and is attacked, that's a terrorist attack. And this attacks, obviously, the attacks on the political leaders are terrorist attacks. Now, my point is that you need military means to deal with this, definitely. But you also need political outreach. You need to look at what are the political issues that have been there. Behind all this are political issues. You've got to make some kind of outreach, some kind of settlement. Instead, out here, what we have seen is that you have done the opposite. Meaning you have attacked the political process, you have demoted Jammu and Kashmir as a state. You have split the state, something which is probably not even sanctioned by the Indian Constitution, and that unfortunately the Supreme Court has not, in its wisdom, not taken this up. But it's simply not there in the Indian Constitution that you can demote a state. And people out there, every Indian has the right to be represented by an assembly, and of course by the parliament. In this case, in Kashmir, we find that the Kashmiris are not represented by anyone. They're represented only by New Delhi. They're represented by the governor. They're represented by the Ministry of Home Affairs.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to get at is that there has to be a political process also there. Meaning you have to have a military process. You have to attack terrorists. You have to defeat them, destroy them. But at the same time, you have to have a political outreach to undermine their ideas.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Let me ask that question to Tuhin Sinha. How much longer, Tuhin, how much longer before the people of Jammu and Kashmir are able to vote for their own state government?
See, our stand is very clear. Kashmir had to go through a life-saving operation. You had postponed that for 70 years. When my friend from PDP says that 11,000 party members of PDP and National Conference were killed in the last 70 years, I feel very sad. But somewhere the duplicity of both of these parties had contributed to the situation. The two falsehoods from day one, which is, that Article 370 and 35A being constitution. Now, 35A was brought in through an ordinance in 1954, May, 7 years after independence. So this falsehood had to end, and this life-saving operation which we undertook was important for the future of Kashmir. I understand that the political process had to be, abruptly ended for a couple of years, but trust me, now in the next 6 months or 8 months, when Kashmir is ready to go to polls, hopefully a new Kashmir would emerge where this falsehood, which was propagated by vested interests and which actually...
So what is it that you have done in 2 years to make it new Kashmir that is ready for election that it wasn't, say, 2 years ago?
To understand the implication, Tanvi, this falsehood had unnecessarily gifted a stake to Pakistan where there was none. That role of Pakistan, that imagined role, had to end, which is why this operation was very important. And trust me, you will see the most robust integration of Kashmir, which is already visible on the ground.
Sorry, I didn't understand. When you say role of Pakistan that has been ended is what, Tuhin?
Sorry?
What do you mean by the role of Pakistan has been brought to an end? What role of Pakistan?
I'm not aware of the politics of blackmail. Mainstream leaders coming out and saying that the moment you do this, belong to you. Are you not aware of the kind of politics that existed on this 2 years ago and which was encouraged by these two articles?
You're still talking to the same mainstream leaders, aren't you? You just hosted a tea party for them a month ago.
So that is because we need to start the political process
with the same people.
So we don't consider anybody as untouchable. They needed a change of mindset which had to happen, not so much through a democratic process, but this change was important.
Okay.
At times, democracy needs a slightly different dose, which was important at this point of time. But yes, we are committed to the political process being restored, which is what we want to happen now.
Okay. Yes, Najmu Saqib, your response.
BJP has a very short memory. They tend to forget that when needed, they parade Umar Saab across the world, saying everything is normal. When they go into an alliance with PDP and sign an agenda of alliance, they say that, nothing will happen with 35A and 370, that we will have conversations with Pakistan and dialogue with Hurriyat as well. So their memory is very short. Let's not hold it, but let's have a larger debate, because this is very pedestrian, what we're talking about. See, nature abhors vacuum. Jammu and Kashmir has been relegated to a union territory. People of Jammu and Kashmir have absolutely no representation. And what we're all seeing, the only conversation that Delhi has with people of Kashmir is through security forces. Because any diktat, any order, any conversation, anything that people of Kashmir get to know every day is through security forces. When we have fake encounters being normalized, mind you, it has been almost a year when President Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha ji went to Rajouri, where three young boys from Rajouri were killed in a fake encounter in Shupin, and he promised there will be an inquiry against that killing. Nothing happened to it. There was an encounter in Hokar, sir, where family alleged that it was a fake encounter. Nothing happened to it. There was a recent encounter in Kulgam, Yaripura, where a young boy was killed. The family alleged it was a fake encounter. Nothing happened to it. When you normalize such brutality, when you normalize such sort of grave human rights violation, and the security forces enjoy impunity under the cover of Armed Force Special Power Act, how do you see things becoming normal in Jammu and Kashmir? It's a dog state now. There are security forces killing young boys. There's the other side which is killing
but was it any different during PDP's tenure or National Conference's tenure?
Absolutely. Let's remind you about in Matsil fake encounter, we ordered an inquiry. We did order an inquiry.
And then, the allegations of brutality and excesses have been around there forever, Najmu Saqib. These are not new things that you're finding right now.
No, absolutely not. That's what we are saying all along, that Jammu and Kashmir is a political problem. We are not saying that, we have done absolute wonders in Jammu and Kashmir and we have not done anything wrong. All we are saying is that this problem needs to be resolved, that Jammu and Kashmir is a political issue. It cannot be resolved only by increasing security forces. Right now, we have more than 3.5 lakh security forces in Jammu and Kashmir. Then why are civilians being killed? Why are political activists being killed? I mean, almost every political activist has a security cover. Almost everyone. Then why are they being killed? If they are not protected, how would a common man be safe? How would common man enjoy protection? So these are very basic questions. And we have GOC Northern Command on record saying that infiltration has been zero when Government of India and Government of Pakistan sort of signed a ceasefire agreement. And we saw peace prevail on the border. You don't have borders active. The people living on LOC can sleep after years now. Their property, for God's sake, we are the only people in the whole of the country who demand we should have bunkers as our homes. That's what you have done to us. We demand that, please make our homes as bunkers. There are thousands and thousands of youngsters still languishing in jails.
Well, that's what collectively we have done to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And I think we can't put the blame on any single political party now, or actually just completely erase what's happened in the past 3 decades as well. But are things changing for the better, Vikram Malhotra? Can we say that?
You see, there are two things. One is what has changed post 370. I don't think much has changed post 370. There is an element in Kashmir for whom it doesn't matter whether Jammu and Kashmir is a state, is a union territory, or there is 370 or 35A, or it isn't. They are working on Pakistan's directions. There is infiltration still happening. Those people have a specific target. For them, I don't think any of these things matter. For they come with a focused mind. They are sent from across the border and they have an aim set for them. So for that, in that sense, if you say what the BJP has been tom-tomming all throughout, that there's going to be an end to terrorism post 370, the things are going to change, that hasn't happened on the ground. And the kind of violence that we are seeing, it's almost the same as that was in the previous governments or regimes. What my friend in PDP is saying, the same Mehbooba Mufti, when the stone pelters attacked, police pickets and were fired on, she said that wo kya wahan doodh lene jate the, toffee lene jate the, wo kyun jate the? So it is, it depends on who is sitting on the ruling chair at certain point in time.
Exactly.
So that for them, I don't think there has been the change in perception or a perceptible change. Like the BJP spokesman says, if everything is so hunky-dory, we should be seeing, the withdrawal of security forces from Jammu and Kashmir. Yeah. Why are we seeing such spurt in violence? Why are we seeing that on the 14th of August, there was Pakistani flag hoisted somewhere in a remote corner of Kashmir? Why do we see that, a kind of a managed show for the 15th of August from Kashmir, trying to say that everything is hunky-dory? No, it isn't. The only way forward now, in my view, is we should go to the people, hold elections, reinstall some lost faith, so that the people have their own elected government. They can go to their people with their miseries. There are a lot of problems in Jammu and Kashmir. The investment hasn't come the way it was expected to be. Only 2 people have, bought land from outside Jammu and Kashmir so far. So the whole idea that, there would be, golden times ahead after post the abrogation of 370 isn't happening. Even in Jammu division, where people, earlier had a euphoria about, 370 going off, are now worried about their kids' future. They want a domicile, they want protection of their land, they want protection of their jobs. So, at the moment, post abrogation of 370, one thing that has stopped in Kashmir is stone pelting. To a certain extent, that has been contained by the security forces and the approach of the government. Every Friday, that whatever used to happen on the roads, we all know. Yeah. So there hasn't been a major incident post 370 which could, which would derail the peaceful atmosphere in Kashmir. Tourists have come this summer also till about August, September. There has been a good tourist inflow. But at the same time, the militancy hasn't stopped. Infiltration hasn't stopped. This feeling I mean, even in the recent encounter in Kashmir, there were incidents of people coming out on the streets and pelting stone at the security forces.
Yeah.
So,
So
I
it
mean,
hasn't
that
changed.
scenario hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed. Locals being gunned down, militants being gunned down, still sees large number of people coming out for those funerals. You still see the local resistance coming in the same level, stone pelting taking place at the same level, politicians being targeted, series of terror attacks every time there is conversation about restarting the democratic process. But will it be fair to say what has changed in 2 years? Can this problem really be solved in such a short span of time? That's the other point. I am out of time, but last 30 seconds to Najmu to react to what was said here by Vikram.
I mean, the only question is that should be asked to BJPs. That what exactly have you punished people of Kashmir for?
Yeah.
If things are the same that they were before, why did you lock up people of Kashmir for 3 months? Why did you snatch away our rights from us? Why did you arrest thousands and thousands of youngsters? Why did you incarcerate every political leader in Jammu and Kashmir? Why did you destroy our economy? Why? Let's ask them this question. The nation should ask them this question. If things are the same as they were before, what was this whole, brouhaha all about? Nation should ask them questions because we suffered. We were in jails. My friends are, those who were in jail. I mean, one of my party colleagues is still in jail.
Yeah.
On concocted charges. That is, are we such second class citizens of India that our case is not being heard in Supreme Court? These are our rights, for God's sake. Why are you so drunk on power? Please get down from your high horses and see that people of Jammu and Kashmir are suffering. I appeal to my fellow countrymen. Please.
I would just say one thing. I'm sorry, Queen, we're completely out of time, but the country and the people of this country and the government of this country cannot forget that there was a process which was initiated in Jammu and Kashmir, and that now needs to be taken forward. You can't just bring in an announcement, make that announcement, and then just forget about what happens next. It does seem, and there is a growing feeling amongst people in Jammu and Kashmir as well, that the path has been abandoned halfway through, before you could get to the end point, before you could actually bring about change, bring about development, bring about peace. It's just gone haywire. Then it's all pointless. You need to show and go the whole way to prove that abrogation of Article 370 was actually good for the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And the more we drag our feet on making those changes and bringing about those changes, on giving the people of Jammu and Kashmir the same rights, the same access, the same privileges that everybody else in this country enjoys, it's of no use. The first privilege that everybody else in this country enjoys is choosing their government. And if you don't bring that about, then how are they going to feel any more part of this country? Will they not feel more alienated? A series of attacks from the terrorists targeting specifically politicians is just a message. But if we don't do anything about restarting elections and bringing about the democratic process, then this message will begin to hit home and will impact more people. And that's just damaging the entire setup more than where you want to be. Thank you for joining us.